On the 19th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me the lazy bitch to hot and rich recipe. I'm scrolling TikTok at 3 a.m. because my nervous system's too fucked to go to sleep and I feel too anxious to put my phone down. Is that why I'm having an existential crisis? There are always going to be a million other things you could have decided to do. I'm broken. Whose goal is to be less hot and less rich? I'll wait. Absolutely nobody. And so I've spent a lot of time, working on the habits that are going to help me get from lazy bitch to hot and rich. This is my plan. This is my game plan for 2024, how I'm going to get hot and rich. Here's the game plan. But first, you know what time it is. Daily check-in. Let's do a check-in from the check-in jar. Let me hold the mic with my knees so I can open it. I can't believe we are so close to the end of Podmas. It's actually insane. This is my last week. I am excited to not be recording every day, but I've also had the best time ever. Okay. Very in keeping with today's episode topic. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? These types of questions ordinarily give me an anxiety attack because how does one know where they're going to be in 10 years? Like, I am someone who doesn't know where I'm going to be next week, but I'm trying to change that. That is not who I want to be anymore. Let me just make sure this is. Where do I think I'm going to be in 10 years? I don't know if everyone has this and everyone kind of finds it hard to kind of view their lives long term. But I do find it quite hard to kind of picture myself 10 years from now. I will be 37. I will be 37. Where do I see myself? I see myself surrounded by friends. I want to live. I don't know where I live, but I'm living surrounded by a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends that I can see on the regular. Because right now, if I want to see most of my friends, I'd have to get on a plane. But I would love to have the ability to see my friends all the time. I see myself financially in a place where I don't have to worry or think about money. In 10 years, I would really like that. I have a lot of assets and lots of investment, so I feel very financially secure. I see myself with the best girlfriends and the most connected to my girlfriends, my friendships. Still freelancing in some way. I see myself not doing like a traditional career. I don't know what that is. I see myself doing something I'm really proud of. I hope that's where I am in 10 years. Hopefully in love and in a very healthy, committed, romantic relationship where we really, really love each other. I potentially have a dog or two that I have rescued. That's kind of where I see myself. That's going to be so interesting. It's so interesting recording content and kind of saying that out loud, knowing that this video will be able to be accessed in 10 years, even though it's so hard to conceptualize the idea of being 37. The fact that I'm going to be able to look at this back when I'm 37 and be there. Yeah, that's kind of tripping me out, to be honest. I don't know. I think it's hard to say where our life is going to lead us because we think we know ourselves so well, but ultimately we're all still learning. Like, I'm still figuring it out. I've only been living my adult life for 8 years. Who knows what hobbies I might take up, what paths my life would lead me down. Who knows where I'll be? But I hope I am enjoying my life for the most part. I hope I'm proud of the way I'm living. I hope I'm having fun. I hope I'm surrounded by people who love me and whom I love. We'll see, won't we? Woo! Okay, existential crisis ensuing, so I'm going to take a pause on that one. Let's talk about the game plan. Okay, the biggest reason why I'm going to speak for myself because I can't speak for you, do not hit my goals, and I set goals at any period of time and then I don't end up achieving them, is because of self-sabotage. And so I don't even need a game plan. I don't need to have to like set goals and be like, okay, reverse engineer my goals into monthly steps. I don't need to do that because I know how to do that and I know how to work towards goals. I set myself a goal for the podcast, 24 episodes, 24 days, and I'm doing it and it's going to be completed. What I need is an anti-self-sabotage blueprint. I need to implement things to stop me getting in my own way. And so this, ladies and gentlemen, there are a few gentlemen, I said that as a joke. If you're a guy, comment. Hi, welcome. I had a guy comment on video that I made. I can't remember which video it is. I feel like they're all blending into one. But he was like, I think my algorithm messed up sending me here, but I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you're here as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I can't even remember why I was saying ladies and gentlemen now because I spoke on it for too long. This is the plan for me. And this is me telling myself, Polly, these are the things that you're going to do next year to prevent yourself from self-sabotaging and to have the hottest, richest year of your life. And I'm just going to share them with you because this is my actual action plan. These are the things I'm actually going to implement. You should implement them too if you want to become hot and rich. Let's do it together next year. A rising tide lifts all ships. The hotter you are, the hotter I am. The richer you are, the richer I am. Let's do this together. Action plan point number 1 is stop focusing on too many things at once. The more priorities you have, the less priorities you have. If your priority list is 10 things long, you can only really give 10% to each of those things. If there's one thing on the list, 100% of effort goes to those things. Doing this podcast every single day for the past 24 days has taught me how to prioritize, and the fact that by prioritizing one thing, you have to deprioritize everything else. And so it's up to you to decide, okay, if I prioritize this, what am I deprioritizing? If I deprioritize this, what would I be prioritizing instead? And you have to decide what thing is most important to prioritize. And the more you prioritize, regardless of whether they're different areas, because I'm always like, oh, I'll have 3 goals for my work. I'll have 3 personal goals. That's 6 goals. I can't keep track of having 6 goals. Neither can you. The less priorities you have, the more they are a priority. And so this podcasting every single day, I've had to so much in the back of my mind. I'm like, God, I'm not posting on social media as much. I should be doing that as well because that's how you grow the podcast. Nobody's going to be able to find out about it if I don't share the clips on social media. But what is the main priority? Getting the podcast episodes out every single day. And so if doing that means I don't have time for the social media, then that's fine because I'm focusing on the priority. And you can't do it all. There's 24 hours in a day. And despite the fact that everybody has the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce, not everybody has teams of people that they can outsource things to. Okay? The less priorities, the better. I would say one thing at a time. Have one main focus at a time. And then if you get other stuff done in the meantime, that's perfect. But you've got to have one thing. So if you're like, I'm focusing on my fitness, that's your main goal, okay? And you still do other things throughout your day. You know, like I'm focusing on podcasting every single day. Podcasting is my main priority. I'm still making social media clips. I'm still going out to meet friends. I'm still seeing my mom. I'm still cooking. I'm still doing my morning and evening routines. I'm still going to yoga. So you still do other things like the other life things. But the most important thing, the priority, the non-negotiable is every single day I put out a podcast episode. So you need to decide what your priority is. Well, I'm not telling you what to do. We need to decide as a collective. No, this is not a collective thing. You have to decide. I just don't want to feel like I'm telling you what to do. We have to decide what we're going to prioritize. And the more things you prioritize, the less they become a priority. And the thing is, I think that's fine. If you actually do have multiple things you want to work at, then that's fine. I think we have to be realistic with ourselves and be like, okay, if I have 2 priorities, if I'm trying to grow my podcast and write a book, and I'm doing both of those things, it's going to take twice the amount of time. And I'm going to only be able to put 50% into the podcast and 50% into the book. Whereas if I decided, okay, I'm going to grow the podcast for a year, 100% goes into that. And then maybe the book happens in the next few years. Okay, so prioritization is paramount. Okay, number 2 is read less, more. Do you ever listen to a personal development podcast or read a self-help book and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is life-changing information. This is going to change my life. The irony isn't lost on me that this is the type of podcast that will create this type of behavior. But you listen to something and you take in a new piece of information and you're like, oh God, I can't believe I didn't know this. This is so influential. I need to change everything I'm doing to adhere to this method. But if you do that every single time you read something new, you're going to be changing things that you're doing so consistently that nothing has a chance to have an impact, because things don't have an impact if you just do them for a week. And so read less, more. Find a few books or ways of living. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. A few, I guess like ways of living is good. Like If you really, really resonate with, let's do a really popular one, Andrew Huberman. If you really resonate with his protocols, instead of taking in every single new piece of information under that umbrella for a set period of time, just follow his protocols and go all in on his protocols. So take everything you can, read everything from him, listen to everything from him, and just marinate in that instead of trying to learn every single idea, because then you're never going to stick to anything and nothing is ever going to help you. It's not like you have to kind of stick to it forever like a doctrine. You're not kind of what is going on with my hood? Sorry, I looked at my hood in the viewfinder and then I changed my hood, but now everything's everywhere and I'm feeling claustrophobic by my coat and my hood. Okay, that's better. This is why you don't wear coats indoors. Where was I? Yeah, it's not about like joining the Andrew Huberman cult and kind of listening exclusively to him for the rest of your life and he kind of becomes like your leader. It's just like, okay, I've listened to this and I feel like this could be really, really powerful for me, really beneficial for me. Why not for 3 months? I just focus on this singular change, this singular way of living, and see how implementing it affects my life. Read less, more. Take in less, more. By the same token, reflect less. Never thought I'd hear myself say that. I am reflection queen. If I could reflect on what I'm doing every single day and sit for an hour every day and be like, okay, how is my life going? What do I need to be doing? Let me review my month. Let me review my week. Let me review the last hour and a half of my life to see if I could be optimizing it in a better way. That is me, okay? But do you know what that does? It sends you down the spiral. The more you kind of plan and reflect, because we all love a planning session. You know, when you sit down and you're like, oh, let me think of all the new ideas I have. Let me think of all the different things I could be doing. Let me see what I should be doing better, what I could take away. That's great. But if you do that constantly, every session you're going to sit down and be like, okay, I have a new idea. Let me implement that. And you're never going to stick at anything long enough because every day you sit down and you're like, oh, I didn't like that piece of content. Let me do something completely different. Oh, I didn't like that at the gym. Let me start a completely new plan. There's such thing as spending too much time reflecting and ruminating and kind of ideating. At some point, you just have to implement. And I think that's more important. So what I do and what I intend to continue doing is just have a set time, like once a week, an hour max, have an ideation session. So I normally go to a coffee shop, I sit down and I'm like, this is my time to reflect on what I'm doing, what's going well. Are there any new things I want to try? Are there things I'm not enjoying? That is my time to reflect. Once that hour's up, I'm done. Don't ruminate, reflect, and plan too much, because then you're never going to stick to anything long enough to actually allow you to make progress. And that's what we're trying to do. We make progress towards being hot and rich. Okay, number 4 in the anti-self-sabotaging manual is lower your expectations, you silly little bitch. I've said this once, I'll say it 1,000 times. We overestimate how much we can do in a year and underestimate how much we can do in 10 years. Often, not that much changes in a year, okay? But if you continue taking steps for 10 years, your life is going to look completely different. And it's so easy when we don't see progress straight away and you look back on your year. I'm about to do my taxes, okay? And so I'm looking back at my year thinking, okay, let me see how much money I've made, how much tax do I have to pay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm comparing it to last year and I'm thinking, God, like I didn't really improve at all. Like this is not great. But then I think, okay, look at myself 10 years ago. This is incredible. I'm earning my own money from freelancing. I'm living, sustaining myself from an income that I'm making. But if we hold ourselves to too high of an expectation in too short of a frame of time, we're going to look at it and be like, okay, this isn't working. I need to change something else. So if you're like, okay, I want to have 6-pack in 6 weeks, obviously that's not going to happen. Obviously. And then you're going to be like, okay, I don't have a 6-pack, so this program I'm doing is obviously not working. I need to change. Or, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to do this anymore because it's obviously not working. You've only been doing it for 6 weeks. You've only been doing it for a year. It takes a long time. Anything worth doing. What is that lyric in Treacherous? This path is trackless. Wait. Oh, I need to look it up. Treacherous. Wow, that's a hard word to spell. There is a lyric in that song that is perfect for this and I need to find it. Nothing safe is worth the drive. Nothing safe is worth the drive. And so nothing easy to have is worth working on. Nothing that you really want is going to be really easy to get. Nothing safe is worth the drive. And I will follow you home. I'll follow you follow you home. I'm so sorry. Lower your expectations. I know that kind of seems like terrible advice and you want to have like high expectations for your life. And I think I've even said on this podcast, if I'm going to have high expectations for anything, it's going to be my life. But I think it's like, cool, you have high expectations, but you can't have attachment to those things coming true immediately. Maybe it's expectations about the time frame. Like nothing worth having is going to come quickly. And nothing that comes quickly is worth having. There's probably loopholes in that, but just fuck off. I've mentioned this before, but something I need to remind myself more often, and something that needs to be an integral part of my anti-self-sabotage plan for when I'm ready to self-sabotage, when I'm feeling like things aren't working, and I'm ready to give it all up, which is the ultimate form of self-sabotage, when you give things up. And that is, I need to remember that growth and progress happens in a spiral. It happens in a spiral. And so when you think about a spiral, it starts to go up. Can you see my hand? Audio listeners, this is why you need to listen to the video on YouTube. Listen to the video, watch the video on YouTube. I actually think you can watch a video on Spotify as well. Spirals go up first. And so you go up and up and up and up and you're like, oh my God. And then what happens, in order to go even higher, the spiral has to come down, but then it goes up even higher. But if you stop every time the spiral starts to come down, you're never going to get to those higher loops of the spiral. And so, you know, when you start a habit with the best intentions and you're like, yes, I'm going to start eating healthily again, and I'm going to fill my body filled with nutritious food. And you do that for 4 days. And then it gets to Friday and you're like, oh, I'm actually craving shit food. And I don't even want to do it about food really, because I don't want to make like negative connotations about good and bad food. But you know what I'm saying? You feel like you're making progress and you're like, yes, this is the time. I'm finally going to stick to this. I feel really good about this. And then all of a sudden you're off the train, you're eating your McPlant from McDonald's and you're like, how did I get here? It happens in a spiral. And so if you manage to commit for 4 days to healthy eating and you've never done that before, that's great. Maybe you have a few days of like, okay, this is not perfect. Then maybe you do it for another 7 days and then you have a few days off and then you commit for 9 days. And then all of a sudden it kind of becomes habitual and it becomes a part of your daily routine. And that goes with everything: food, exercise, good habits, good routines, productivity, getting work done, all of it. It happens in an upward spiral. And so don't quit if you feel like you're plateauing, because you need the downs in order to go up. I don't want to be like, oh, you need the downs in order to appreciate the ups. The spiral, in order to keep going up to the bigger, higher loops, has to go down. And so let that happen and know that that is a part of continued progress to becoming hotter, richer, successfuler, better at spelling and grammar. Oh, that rhymed. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. In the same way, the knowledge that things don't always look like progress, okay? And a really good example of this is the gym. So if you know anything about the gym, if you've never really exercised before, this is particularly with weight training, but if you've never really exercised before and you start weight training 3 or 4 times a week, you're going to see gains quite quickly. Like you're going to gain a lot of strength very quickly. You're going to be really impressed with yourself, like the amount you're able to lift and continue to lift at the get-go. And then somewhere between kind of 6 to 12 weeks, you're going to hit a bit of a plateau. And this is so natural. And at this plateau, you'll start noticing that your strength it's not improving and increasing as much as it was when you started. You'll notice that your increases are maybe a bit smaller on the weights you're lifting. Maybe you'll notice the reps are slightly harder. Things will just feel like you're not increasing and improving at the same rate as you did at the very beginning. Now, I'm not a woman in STEM, and so I don't know the science behind this, but I know this to be true. And the thing is, a lot of people stop there because that's when you get disheartened. And it's the same, like a downward spiral. Like you see a kind of plateau or you feel like you're going downwards and all of a sudden you stop because you're like, oh, this is like pointless, I'm stopping. But if you stop there, you don't get to see the astronomical progress you're going to make after that plateau. Even though on paper, that kind of plateau doesn't look like progress, and maybe in your day-to-day, you don't feel like you're progressing, even if you're trying to grow your social media. I feel like I just use the same 3 examples over and over again. Food, exercise, growing your social media. Well, they're applicable to most people, I think. I recently had a TikTok go quite viral. My YouTube subscribers, my Instagram, my TikTok, all kind of blew up a little bit in terms of engagement and follows and likes. Now it's kind of hit a plateau and things are a little bit more back to normal. The base level views are maybe a little bit higher than they were before. But right now it kind of feels like a plateau. And in my mind, I'm like, God, this is so annoying. Like I was growing so much at the beginning. I would constantly go on my phone and I'd have new followers and new engagement and new views. And now it's kind of hit a plateau. It would be very easy for me right now to just stop posting and be like, oh, okay, never mind. But if I do that, I don't give it a chance to grow again and have that upwards loop in the spiral. And so even if it doesn't look like progress, the only way for you to stop progressing is to actually stop. So progress doesn't always look like progress. Look into subconscious patterns. If you are a self-sabotaging Sally and you feel like you are the root of most of your problems, and if you feel as though you watch yourself almost like an out-of-body experience, you kind of watch yourself play out these habits and activities and actions that you know aren't conducive to the person you want to be. And you'll act in a certain way and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, I know this isn't the type of person I want to be. I know this isn't helping me get to where I want to go. I know that I'm going to be annoyed at myself tomorrow or next week because of the way I'm acting, and yet I'm still doing it. Look into kind of subconscious patterns, subconscious belief systems, do some research into that and learn the kind of why you're self-sabotaging, because so much of our self-sabotaging is to do with the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. Some resources for that: Existential Kink is a book that I've recommended before. Psycho-Cybernetics is another book. You can also listen to these on audiobook if you're not really a reading gal. Any Jungian psychology, like Carl Jung, there are loads of YouTube videos about Carl Jung that I'm sure you could find information about, or just look up subconscious patterns, subconscious belief systems, because if consciously you can see that the behaviors that you are playing out are not conducive to the person you want to be and where you want to go, then there must be something subconsciously going on. Because you can consciously see, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm binge eating. I don't know why I wake up and go on my phone, even though every night when I go to bed, I tell myself I'm not going to do that because I know it's bad for me and I know it sets me up for a bad day. Consciously, you know that. And so if consciously you know that, but you still are playing out these behaviors, there's something subconscious going on. And the more you can learn that and the more you figure that out, and you can kind of appreciate and understand why subconsciously that's going on, then you have data to like help you fix that. And once you have that data, moving on to the next critical step of the anti-self-sabotaging regime. Sounds like some sort of kind of Orwellian scene where I'm building maybe some sort of faction. After you kind of understand that, you need to remove the barriers to entry. Remove the barriers to entry for the things that you want to do. This is all about being realistic with yourself and kind of looking at yourself and being like, okay, if the type of person I want to be is, I want to exercise. Like, I want to be an exercising person. I want to exercise. I know it's good for me. I know it'll make me feel good. My body will feel better. I'm going to live longer. I want to exercise. Realistically, if you're not exercising at all right now, do you think if you set yourself a goal, okay, I'm going to wake up every single morning during the week and go for a run before I go to work? It's dark, it's rainy, but I'm going to do it anyway. Realistically, do you think you're going to stick to that? Like, let's be realistic. With the best intentions, of course, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in this case, the road to hell is paved with unrealized dreams. Because if you set yourself the goal to do that and you go from not doing anything to telling yourself 5 days a week, I'm going to get up at the arse crack of dawn and exercise in the morning, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're not going to do it, or maybe you'll do it once or twice and then you'll quit. And then you'll use that experience to affirm to yourself that you're a lazy person, that you can never stick to anything, that you can't exercise, that you're not motivated. And that all creates an even bigger barrier between you and being hot and rich. Hotter and richer. Language change, very important. So be realistic. Let's say, yes, okay, you want to exercise. What is the kind of lowest barrier to entry to that? Me right now, I'm trying to implement an exercise regime in my mornings. I do a lot of yoga in the afternoons and we go to the gym in the afternoons, but the mornings, I feel better when I exercise in the mornings, but it's hard to implement, because when I wake up, I don't want to exercise. And I was like, okay, I love walking. Walking is better than running, so I'll try walking outside. It is raining, it is cold, it is grey. The last thing I want to do when I wake up is get out of my bed, put loads of clothes on and go outside. what is a lower barrier to entry than doing that, but still exercising? We have a walking pad, like a treadmill, but just for walking, in our house. Doing that in my pajamas for 10 minutes. That is such a low barrier to entry. I don't have to think. I don't have to get changed. I don't have to go outside. I don't have to face the elements. That is a very realistic goal that I can set myself, that I can encourage myself to do. I do it in my pajamas. I just roll out of bed, I get into my bathroom, brush my teeth, go to a toilet, and then get on the walking pad for 10 minutes. And that's still building the habits of the person I want to be, which is exercising in the mornings, but it's easier and it feels right. Like, we don't have to make it so hard for ourselves. So you don't have to make it so hard for yourself to achieve the goals that you want. If you can't bear the idea of getting up in the morning and taking an ice bath, that I know like cold plunging is very popular at the moment. If you can't bear the idea of that, and you know heart of hearts that right now that is just not accessible to you, fine, don't do that. If that's kind of the person you want to be and that's where you want to be eventually, what is the lowest barrier to entry for that? Maybe twice a week or once a week, maybe every time you wash your hair, at the end of the shower, you turn it cold for 30 seconds. That's a low barrier to entry. You could definitely do that. And so it's like setting ourselves up for success, removing the barriers. You don't need to cold plunge every morning for the rest of your life when you've never done it before in your whole life before. Don't make it harder for yourself. Like, small steps, incremental steps, make it as easy as possible for you to succeed. And then you build upon that. Once I'm habitually on the walking pad every single morning, maybe I'll add a little Pilates every now and then. Maybe I will go outside every now and again. Maybe I'll go for a run occasionally, but probably not, because running sucks. It's like you incrementally build these habits, but if you set them too big and then you fail, it's even harder to pick yourself back up. So set yourself up for success. Like, you deserve it. Okay, and the last one is this. And this is where I'm going to leave you. And this is, what would be enough? Every goal you set yourself, I know I'm talking about being hot and rich. It's more specific for you than that, I know. You have specific goals that you want to achieve, and they're probably the same, you know? The things that you're working towards probably remain quite consistent from year to year. Like, your New Year's resolutions are probably quite consistent. The things that you want are probably quite consistent. And the things that you feel like you keep failing at or you keep not achieving are probably quite similar. And so I want you to know, and I think it's important for us to know, and this is what I'm figuring out. Every goal that I set myself this year, I need to know what it is, why I'm doing it, like, why is it so important to me, and what would enough be like? So if I'm like, I want to be hot, what does that look like? You know? What would be enough? At what point would I be hot enough? Because if there's no end goal, you're just arbitrarily working towards something that doesn't exist. And if you don't know what the end is, it's very hard to feel like you're working towards something because it's ineffable. It doesn't exist. And so what would be enough for you if you're working on making a certain amount of money? What is enough and why? Why is that so important to you? How would it change your life? What is enough? Why is it important to you? Do you actually want it, or do you just think that you want it? An example I gave in an episode yesterday is, I love the idea of writing fantasy fiction. I love the idea of writing a fiction book. And I'm like, okay, why do I actually want that? Because I feel like I want it. Why? What do I actually want from it? And I can't figure that out yet. But I'm going down that road because I'm like, okay, why do I want to write a book? Do I just like the idea of it? Do I like the kind of accolades that come with writing a book? Am I romanticizing it because of movies and TV shows? So every goal that you set, you just try and figure out why you're setting it, if you actually want it. And maybe there's something deeper than that. If you've never done the 7 levels deep exercise, Google that. That's a really good exercise to help you figure out why you want something. If you're like, yeah, I want this, but I don't really know why, I just do. The 7 levels deep exercise is really good for that. 2024 is going to be our year. I mean, it's actually not. Like, I hate that. Every year is our year because you exist. And all of these kind of goals are essentially meaningless, but they do give us purpose, and we need purpose to live. Purpose is one of the 3 components of happiness, so we need it. But also just take them with a grain of salt. You know, it's meant to be fun. This is kind of a joke. We're all on a floating rock. We're all going to die. It doesn't matter.